My name is Mira King, and I am a member of NSCS from the Pennsylvania State University chapter. I am also the current NLC president. This evening, I would like to introduce Captain Lindsay Rodman, who will be introducing our opening speaker this evening. Lindsay became a member of NSCS during her undergraduate years at Duke University. After Duke, she attended Harvard, where she earned a law degree and a master's degree in public policy. She obtained a master's degree in public policy before joining the U.S. Marine Corps. Currently, she is a captain working as a legal counsel to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Please welcome Lindsay Rodman.
Thank you so much. It is my great honor to join you this evening for this event and actually to introduce your next incredible speaker. While I was serving as president and before I ever dreamed about putting on a uniform, I had the great honor to meet the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral William Crowe, when he was serving as the chair of the NSCS Honorary Board of Directors. Today I'm here to introduce his successor as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and perhaps, in our view tonight, even more importantly, his compatriot as a great supporter of NSCS and a member of the Honorary Board of Directors from 1998 to 2000. The Honorable General Colin Powell served as National Security Advisor from 1987 to 1989, as the 12th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 1989 to 1983, and as the 65th Secretary of State from 2001 until 2005. In 1997, General Powell also founded America's Promise Alliance, which seeks to create the conditions for success for all young people, and became a valued partner of NSCS in 1998. His career in government service was among the most distinguished in American history. Rather than rest on those laurels, however, General Powell has continued to serve since leaving the federal government as an advocate of higher education and community service through America's Promise Alliance and his support for organizations like NSCS. We are so excited to have him with us tonight as we celebrate 20 years of NSCS. He embodies the three tenets we all hold so dear: scholarship, leadership, and service. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable General Colin Powell.
Thank you, Captain Rodman. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Captain Rodman. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here for a few moments. I'm on my way to another dinner. It's one of those nights in Washington when you have two dinners in a row and a torrential thunderstorm keeping you from doing either one. But it's a great pleasure to be with you. I remember fondly my predecessor and beloved friend, Bill Crowe, who I knew for a long time, and when he approached me to serve as a member of the Honorary Board of Regents of this great organization, I said I was delighted, and did for a couple of years before I had to go back into government, and they made me give up everything in order to serve my country in a new way. But I said to Bill at the time, you sure you want me? You know, these kids, young people, leaders to be, all have minimum of 3.4 average, and they're in the upper 20%. I missed both indicators. My average in high school was 78. My average coming out of college, as I like to joke, was not bad, because they took my ROTC grades and rolled them into my overall grade point average, which brought me up to 2.0. And they said, you know, get him out of here. The Army will take him and we'll never see him again, and that'll be the end of that. And now I'm considered one of the greatest sons the City College of New York has ever had. And I talk to youngsters all the time, and what I say to them, you know, is it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't supposed to happen. There was no way any kid like me, immigrant parents living in Harlem in the South Bronx, should have been able to do this, but I was able to do it because of the great country that we live in, and because I came along at a time when the country was changing. I essentially entered college in 1954 when the Board of Education, Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka versus Board of Education, you know the law I'm talking about, was, the Supreme Court said, no, the separate but equal is not equal, and that was the end of that. But it took another 8 years before that really became widespread throughout the country. And then when I went into the Army in 1958, it was the beginning of a new era in the Army. The last segregated unit was finally shut down about 1954 or 55. And so I was in a new generation of officers who entered the most socially progressive organization in America, the Armed Forces of the United States, simply because they said, integrate, right, you got it, no problem. And that's what we did. And I still remember at the very beginning, and I'm telling you this story because I tell it to kids everywhere, at the very beginning, what I was told by my leaders, not in these exact words, but this was the tone they gave us. Lieutenant Powell, we don't care if you're black, white, blue, green, yellow. We don't want to hear any stories about your immigrant parents or your hard upbringing in the South Bronx. No Horatio Alger stories. We don't have time for that. The only thing we care about is performance. And if you perform well, you move up. And if you have the potential to move up, you'll move up. And we know you didn't go to West Point or VMI or Citadel. VMI Citadel I couldn't get into when I entered college because they were still segregated. And so this is not ancient history for me. This is my life. And I did what they told me to, and I worked hard. And what I tell youngsters now, it's not where you start in life, it's what you do with life, which will determine where you end up in life and what you succeed at doing in life. You're a very unique group of individuals, students here, and those who have been supporting this great organization for its 20-year history, and congratulations on 20 years. But you're already winners. You have high grades. You are going to great schools. You're already in those great schools, and you will come out and be successes in life. And I think that's wonderful. I think it is terrific that we are able to bring young leaders like you through a program like this, expose you to new experiences, but at the same time reinforce the education that you're getting in college. But the one thing I want to let you know is that while you're on a path up, there are a lot of youngsters who are not on a path up. There are a lot of problems in our society that will not be solved by just being at the top. They'll only be solved by you being interested and you caring about your fellow citizens and you caring about those who have not yet benefited from the goodness and the richness and the potential of our society, of the American society. You have been a partner of the America's Promise Alliance, as you heard a moment ago, for quite a number of years. And we had a summit this past week, or this week, frankly, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, where we brought 1,000 people in to talk about how we were doing with respect to the education of our young people. And we're very proud of something we announced that day, and that is 80% of all youngsters are now graduating from high school in 4 years. That's the highest it's been in the country's history, and we're very proud of that. And it's a result of people coming together and saying, we got to do something about it. But at the same time, we are shooting for 90% by 2020, and hopefully everybody should get through high school in due course. But the problem becomes more difficult now. The 80% was hard to get. That next 10% is going to be even harder. And we know what the problems are. Low income, low esteem, poverty results in a higher dropout rate. But what we also discovered through our research and our experience is that you can do something about it. You are not ordained necessarily to come from a low-income place and end up in a low educational level. But it takes people being involved. It takes people who are willing to mentor. It takes people who will touch one child and take that child and say, you are valuable, you're important, I'm going to mentor you, I'm going to work with you. You're going to see me every week. And over and over and over, I've seen this repeated as to how you bring youngsters up. At the same time, we have to work on our economy, and we have to work on the other inequities that exist in our society. We have to work on the problem of still some racism in our society. Don't think it's all gone. It didn't all go away with the Civil Rights Revolution. There are still problems here that are affecting us. We are still carrying our past into our present and into our future. I had fun with these two gentlemen this week, the guy who owns the Clippers and that cowboy out in Nebraska who won't pay his taxes or whatever he owes. But I'm having fun with it because the gentleman in Nebraska, Mr. Bundy, said, well, Negroes, that's what I used to be. I'm not a Negro anymore. Negroes are in trouble because they forgot how to grow cotton. That's what he said. And I'm smiling, said, you know, hey man, we didn't have any cotton in the Bronx. So I'm sorry, but I couldn't do that, so I went to school and became chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff instead. But the problem is, every kid ought to believe that when someone's trying to tell him to grow or chop cotton, he's going to say, no, I'm going to get an education and move up. I'm going to do something better. One of the young men that I've come to know very, very well, he's graduating from Georgetown this month, right, Peggy? This month. And he's got a great story. He's a Hispanic kid, Jose Madrid, and he graduated from parochial school in Denver. And he comes from a poor family, lots of kids in the family of low income. And I was watching television one night about 5 years ago, and there was a story about this young man called Jose Madrid. And he was a valedictorian of his class of 82 students, and all 82 were going to go to college out of this parochial school. And they were talking to him, the interviewers were talking to him, and they said, well, this is amazing. You came from this kind of background, you were not a great student, you made it. Not only did you make it, you're going to go to Georgetown, and you're the valedictorian of your class. How? Why? How did it happen? And he simply said, I was never, ever given the opportunity to fail. They kept me in play. I couldn't fail. I wasn't allowed to think about dropping out or not do my very, very best. So I was never given the opportunity to fail. And then he paused for a moment, and he just looked at the camera and he said, and now I have changed the history of my family. Because when he becomes successful after leaving Georgetown and going on to other studies, his children will go another level higher. Because all of our parents want us to do better. But sometimes the family itself, the parents themselves, are not up to the task. If you look at the demographic changes taking place in the United States, more and more adults are not marrying. More and more children are being born out of marriage. Many of those children are in low-income homes where there is a great deal of pressure on that single parent, the mother or the grandmother, to take care of that youngster. And that makes it more difficult for us to get that other 10% if this is the environment in which we are working. I think these social and demographic changes that are taking place are good. We're going to be a minority-majority nation by 2040, where the Asians and African Americans and Hispanic Americans will be over 50% of the population throughout the country, not just in California. And that is going to be something we can handle because Americans have always handled these waves of immigrants who change and enrich our culture and frankly give us the younger people we need to pay the taxes that are going to keep me in Social Security. We are refreshed by the immigrants who come to this country. And so it's a wonderful country, but it has challenges. You young people who are here, go be rich, go be successful, go to the highest positions you can, but don't ever forget that there are youngsters who need you, who are counting on you, and you need to reach back and across and down, and don't pretend you don't see it. Don't pretend it isn't there, because I'm telling you it is. And a major part of my life now, whether it's with America's Promise, or I am now the chairman of the Board of Visitors of the Colin Powell School at the City College of New York. In fact, so I'm trying to work at the grassroots level for kids and at the college level at CCNY, where 80% of the students are minority and 50% are immigrants. Not the children of immigrants, they are immigrants. And I'm also working it by adopting a school in Washington, D.C. that I work with. My church and I, we work with this school. We've done it for the last 17 years. Because you have to get involved, and they're waiting for you. They want you, they need you. Without you reaching back down the cross, as I've said now twice, they're going to get lost, and we can't afford to lose anybody. They're all our children. So congratulations to all of you for your successes in life. Congratulations to this marvelous program. I'm so glad that my good friend Bill Crow made me a part of it for a while, and I thank you especially for the support you've given to the America's Promise Alliance since 1998 or thereabouts. And I want you to have a great evening. There are 19 more speakers after me, so I will now leave. Thank you all very, very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, General Powell, for those inspiring words. It is now my pleasure to introduce Erin Corrigan-Thomas and Chris Ferguson, student leaders at the George Washington University, with whom Steve first shared his crazy idea with over a lasagna dinner. Joining them is Laura Taducci Downs, founding chapter advisor at the George Washington University, and Katrina Lindman, current chapter president at GW University. Please welcome them to the podium.
Thank you, Mara. Good evening. Following General Powell is not ever something I thought I would do. Yet another opportunity that NSCS has given me that I'm very grateful for. Can't wait to tell my mother. My name is Chris Ferguson, and with my dear friend Erin Corrigan, we were the two students that Steve invited to the auspicious and now infamous lasagna dinner. Just the fact that Steve was cooking made it a historic event. As most of you know, Steve's not a cook. And in the 25 years, almost 25 years that I've known Steve, I think it's the only meal that I've known that he's actually prepared. So that in and of itself made it a special evening. And for those of you who don't know, Steve thought his oven was actually extra storage. And so he had an overflowing file cabinet, and he thought, well, you know, I'll use my oven for these extra files and the extra papers. And he actually had to clean them out in order to bake the lasagna. So I'm not going to speak to you about the quality of the meal tonight, because to be honest, I really don't remember much about the meal. But I'll never forget the conversation that we had that evening. It was on that night, on November 11th, 1993, that Steve shared with Erin and me his idea to start an honor society for college freshmen and sophomores. Steve had dedicated his career to working with college students in general and first-year students in particular. And first, as the director of new student orientation at George Washington University, and then as director of campus activities, Steve knew the value to students and to their schools when they got involved in their campus communities early in their college experience. He knew that by joining campus organizations, students had an opportunity to connect to the university, but more importantly, to connect to each other, to form the relationships and the communities that would sustain and nurture them throughout their college experience, forming lifelong friendships, and creating for them a home away from home. The earlier students did this in their college experience, the more successful they would be at college and more likely to graduate. So Steve also knew that students added value to a school as soon as they entered the college campus, as soon as they stepped foot on a college campus. That's why orientation was so important to him. And he knew that every student brought with them a potential, him or her a potential to do something significant at that school and to have a significant experience. But he saw that too many schools didn't create opportunities for first and second year students to have leadership opportunities. So all of these experiences led Steve to ask a series of questions to us that evening. He asked us, why should students have to wait until the end of their college experience to be recognized for their achievement and to assume leadership roles? What would happen to a student's development if he or she were recognized in the first or second year of her academic achievement and then given an opportunity to develop leadership skills by being an officer in an organization that was dedicated specifically to first and second year students? He went on to further ask, what would happen not only to the student, but to the campus? And what would happen not only to the campus, but to the community that these students found themselves in? Then he asked Erin and me, what if there was an organization, an honor society, specifically for first and second year students? He wanted to know what Erin and I thought was possible and invited us to imagine with him the positive difference that such an organization could make. We spent the rest of the night answering those questions, and we were discussing, it was so exciting that Aaron and I wanted to help and do whatever we could to make his vision a reality. I don't remember if it was Aaron's idea or if Steve came up with it, but eventually as we talked, we realized and agreed that community service would be a unique opportunity for students not only to give back to their communities, but to develop leadership skills. And so from that initial conversation over lasagna came the 3 pillars of NSCS, scholarship, leadership, and service. They took shape. By the end of the night, Steve had fully articulated his vision for his new organization. It would be an honor society that recognized and encouraged academic achievement among first and second year students and developed leadership skills through community service. So here we are 20 years later, a little less hair, a little more wrinkles, and we're celebrating NSCS's success. Over 350 chapters, thousands of scholarships awarded, 1 million lifetime members, and not to mention the millions of hours of community service conducted in the different cities across this country. Knowing Steve the way we did, neither Aaron nor I had any doubts that he would make his vision a reality. What we didn't know, what we couldn't know, was how tremendously successful he and NSCS would be, and what a positive impact it would have on so many, many people. At the early induction ceremonies, we emphasized the value of service by reminding students of Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote, "Everyone can be great because everyone can serve." I believe that NSCS is great because it's given all of us an opportunity to be of service. And with that, I'd like to ask my beautiful friend and last date, Laura Tuducci, to the podium.
I was joking with Chris earlier today. I took Chris to my Delta Gamma formal at GW. And I threatened to show pictures, but I'm not going to do that. So thank you, Chris. It's wonderful to be here today. It seems incredible to me that NSCS's first chapter, established at the George Washington University, is 20 years old today. After all, NSCS started with just one chapter. When our chapter was founded, NSCS was founded. We know that the story of the founding of NSCS is one of a visionary named Steve Laughlin and his positive spirit and no dream is too big outlook. However, Steve had to overcome naysayers and many obstacles throughout the past 20 years to grow the organization into what it is today. In the early days of establishing NSCS, Steve's passion and commitment were vital to staying the course. He was director of campus life at GW and resigned from his position to start NSCS. Can you imagine leaving a full-time job with a steady paycheck to start a nonprofit organization? Of course, to Steve, it made perfect sense, and he knew that NSCS was just what our country's college underclassmen needed. As the first chapter advisor, I tried to help Steve navigate the layers of bureaucracy at GW. Things that run smoothly for NSCS today, such as invitations to join and inductions and name recognition, were difficult for us 20 years ago. The office of the registrar was very suspicious. Why did we need names and addresses of academically accomplished underclassmen? The president of GW at the time even tried to block Steve's efforts, saying to Steve, "Why do we need you guys? We have enough honor societies here." The other challenging aspect back then was technology. For those young people in the audience who may not believe this, but when NSCS was founded, there was no email. Believe it or not. Email was just coming to be. We still had the black screens at GW with the green type, no windows, nothing. So college students had no access to email. And that made correspondence very slow. We had to use the good old-fashioned mail. And when parents heard of the invitations to NSCS and the induction fee, some were a little suspicious. After all, NSCS was brand new. They hadn't heard of it. And there was no such thing called the web, where you could go and look it up and see what it's about. In fact, Steve didn't even have an office at that time. All he had was a P.O. box. So we've come a long way. Our first induction was small, held in a small meeting room at the Student Union at GW. However, the NSCS ideals of scholarship, leadership, and service resonated with GW students, and the chapter grew quickly. Within a few years, we moved the inductions to the theater. The excitement about NSCS was infectious. Steve Laughlin was able to overcome so many obstacles in those early days, thanks to his perseverance and hard work. And 20 years later, we're gathered here today to celebrate him and the organization he's created, an organization that has changed hundreds of thousands of lives. And it's now my pleasure to introduce my friend Erin Corrigan-Thomas, who is the other lucky guest to enjoy the lasagna dinner. Erin.
Good evening. It's so nice to be here today. My mother had a favorite saying, bloom where you are planted now. And when I came back to work for NSCS years later in 2001, I had been so lucky to be a part of that lasagna dinner in the early days, but had gone off and done other things in my career. And NSCS was an organization at the time where there was a lot of chapters at individual colleges. It went from 50 to 100 to 200 in that time period that I was there around the new millennium. And each of these chapters was blooming where they were. They had their own resources, the terrific student leaders. I mean, it's just unimaginable the types of ingenuity and inspiration that was coming from each of these different college campuses. But they didn't have really as much of a national network at that time. And so I look back on my days at NSCS as being very lucky to be there at the time where we said, your garden is beautiful, but let's add to it, and let's give you some tools that you can use in it. And so it went from being, when I joined NSCS in 2001, Planning for College Success, which I believe now is PACE, was well underway, and the wonderful ceremonial aspect of NSCS was underway. But the growth in how you could join together, having a national leadership council, a business board, and coming together as students in a bigger way, more communication, more sharing, national service projects, service spring break, all came together. And then all of a sudden, NSCS wasn't just these beautiful bouquets on individual campuses, but it was a national organization. It was an early adopter to the internet. And all of a sudden, people had a chance to come together and find out where they were and share ideas and best practices. And for me, I had a chance when I was a very young person to be asked my opinion on something. And I was given a mentor, somebody that I still look up to today. Thank you. And it's just amazing that NSCS has afforded that opportunity to so many other people. Everybody here in that room has given that opportunity to somebody. And we should continue to pay it forward. That's the beauty of year 20. It's just the beginning. There's so much more to do, and I'm lucky to be here to introduce tonight somebody who is also celebrating a 20-year anniversary on their college campus, the George Washington University campus, Founders Day. Instead of being in the auditorium as it was supposed to be, there was a scramble because, as you know, on college campuses, sometimes room reservations get mixed up, and it was changed to a different room, and the induction happened, and now we have the 20th chapter president here tonight. Katrina will get to tell you a little bit more about the reality of NSCS today. It jumped from 1 to 2 to 9 to 50 to 100 to 200 to closing in on 400 now to 1 million members. But really what it's all about is Katrina and the students like her who are doing the service. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Erin. In advance, I'd like to apologize for my voice. I just got a cold, so it's horrible. I'm very sorry. So as rising president of NSCS for next year, I'm hoping to continue with the traditions that the fabulous presidents before me have set forth. Our chapter is truly unique in the variety of relationships that have blossomed throughout the years. Some of the students who had helped Steve Laughlin are now active alumni, collaborating with the national office. Current students are also working with the national office, working as work-study students or student employees, and so it's absolutely wonderful how everyone is still working together. I know personally for the GW chapter, we have Peter Konworski, who I believe is not yet here, but I would like to thank him because he has been there for our chapter for many, many years now as our host. He's one of those people who when a panicked president comes up to him and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? He has a plan B, a plan C, and even a plan D to really help with them. Anything from planning the induction ceremony to, just finding people to speak for our events, he's there for us, which is wonderful. In the most recent years, the GW chapter has taken the organization's pillars of leadership and service really to heart. We've had some absolutely amazing events at our chapter, one of which is March to College, which is an amazing event that we have where we invite high schoolers, local high schoolers, to come to our chapter university and see what the college life and experience can be like. This past March, we had it at the University of Maryland. GW was originally supposed to host it, but then it was moved, and so they were gracious enough to host it. I was on e-board, and so I got to help a little bit with figuring out what the events would be. And it was absolutely great to see all the young students, learn about, what is the process of applying to college, what are some interesting things that you do in college, like DC life in general. And they really learned a lot in a very fun but educational way, which is wonderful. I do have some hopes in my coming semester of continuing that relationship between our members and the local youth. For instance, there's a new nonprofit organization, WISE, which is Women and Youth Supporting Each Other, which is a national female mentorship program organization that hopes to empower young women by providing resources and support. They will be creating their chapter at GW this coming fall, which is amazing. And so that would be one of the things I would highly try to get the female members of NSCS to definitely apply to and to work with. Another local nonprofit organization that desperately needs help is Brain Food, which is close to my heart because I am pre-med unless I'm interested in nutrition and stuff like that. This organization aims at teaching youth important life skills such as how to cook for themselves and for their families. And at the same time, it's a way to keep these students off of the streets and doing something productive after school. And so they always need young people who are, looking to change the community, which is something I know NSCS members really want to do, which is wonderful. Another amazing event that we had was actually just this past Sunday, which was a TED-style seminar, which was Success in Service, Life After the Peace Corps. And this was, again, very inspiring. We had a panel of different Peace Corps members who ranged from a gentleman who had volunteered in Senegal for 4 years, developing a universal bed net distribution protocol to further the Stomping Out Malaria in Africa, which is the Peace Corps' Africa-wide malaria prevention program, to a young woman who actually started up a entirely new text message system in Nicaragua to send out sexual and reproductive health information to the youth. So I'm definitely striving to get a lot more of these types of events coming to our chapter. I'm looking forward to it, and I can just say that I have been truly inspired by those chapters and presidents before me, and I can only hope to further inspire people like that. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'd like to welcome to the podium Ms. Marilyn Gibbs-Watson, President and Chief Operating Officer here at NSCS.
Thank you so much, Mira. Well, good evening, everyone. And I'd like to say everyone is looking amazingly gorgeous today, so give yourselves a round of applause. So, as you heard, I'm Marilyn Gibbs-Watson, also known as VG, President and Chief Operating Officer for the National Society of Collegiate Scholars. I'm so thrilled to announce this evening that thanks to the generosity of our donors, as well as that of our founders-level sponsors, RST Marketing and YMC, we have raised over $5,000 towards our scholarships goal. It gets better. So I'm even more thrilled to say that this means that we will officially be able to make available more than $1 million in scholarships to our members this fiscal year. So on behalf of the deserving NSCS members who will benefit from your support, thank you so very much to all of you for your support and your generosity. Now, speaking of generosity, in my role at NSCS, not only do I have the honor of serving our members who, of course, matter most, but I also have the great fortune of working alongside our founder, Steve Laughlin, a man whose generosity of spirit and true belief that nothing is ever impossible, serves as a constant example and inspiration to us all. From the very beginning of planning the celebration, Steve wanted to be sure it focused on two things. Number one, our members, from the very first to the millionth and beyond. So we celebrate all of our scholars who have entrusted us with the opportunity to not only recognize them for their academic success, but to also elevate them by providing a lifetime of value through numerous benefits and opportunities. And second, our supporters, all of the people who paved the way and believed in the mission of NSCS, and in doing so, help us to make a difference for those members. So we celebrate you, our advisors, board members, partners, staff, all of our friends of NSCS. And while this celebration is indeed in honor of our members and our supporters, because we know that this milestone is only possible because of all the efforts of so many people, we also know that none of it would have been possible without the idea that set this vision in motion. Now, Steve. Now, we know that you don't like us to make a big fuss and you don't want a lot of, anxiety around when it comes to you, but we could not let this occasion go by without finding just a teeny tiny small way to say thank you and recognize the legacy that you've created for millions of scholars and the opportunities you've made possible in creating a work environment that is so unlike any other. Plus, it's Founders Day, so we're hoping you'll cut us a little bit of slack. They say China is the traditional gift for our 20th anniversary. So on the 20th anniversary and 20th Founders Day of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars, on behalf of the members and the supporters of NSCS, we would like to present you with a small token. Now, we promise, we looked for the smallest, non-fussiest, yet commemorative thing we could find. So we found a very modest china plate. I mean, if you look at it, it's really more of a saucer than a plate, okay? And don't worry, you don't have to come up here. Jeannie's going to bring it over to you, and then she's going to make sure it gets back to the office, so we took care of all the details. But without further delay, we present to you this humble token of our appreciation, inscribed with the 20th anniversary logo, and also the following heartfelt sentiment that each and every one of us share.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that everyone is enjoying their meal. But right now, we would like to proceed into the second segment of tonight's program. So it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to serve as your 2013-2014 NLC president. Now, when I think about what this board and this organization means to me, sometimes, it's overwhelming to articulate and express exactly how I feel and the impacts of this organization on my life and on the lives of members. So right now, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Dave Jose, who's also an NLC member from Providence College. An NSCS member from Providence College. He was also an NLC president from 2006 to 2007. We would also like to acknowledge two NLC members who are here with us. They are past NLC members, Dan Horgan and Lindsay Rodman.
Good evening. Is this working? Good evening, everyone. I apologize in advance. I just reached for my note cards, and they're in my Uber. I took over here. So what y'all think about this scandal finale or the Wizards, because that's about all I'm equipped to talk about now. No, my name is Dave Jose. I'm super excited to be here with Mira to talk a little bit about the National Leadership Council and how it impacted both of us. Like she said, I was a member at Providence College, and post my experience with the NLC, I moved to New Orleans with Teach for America to become a high school English teacher, and I taught English and social studies and health and French for a little while because we were short teachers, and I don't speak French, so those kids didn't learn much. But I'm super excited to be here. Right now, I'm in D.C. I'm a part of America's Promise Alliance and the Grad Nation movement, and really excited to be here. So before we really talk, I thought, Mira, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the NLC is, because I'm not sure everyone knows.
Absolutely, and this is a question that I get all the time whenever I meet a new member and I say, oh, I'm a member of the NLC. They're always like, oh, what do you guys do again? So it's a pretty common question, and I always joke around and I say, we're the reason why NSCS is so successful. And I say that because really this board is such a special opportunity for a selected number of students to serve as an advisory board to the staff members at the headquarters. And I really haven't seen many other honor societies that really has a board similar to this. So we're on this current board, it's 6 of us. We go to different universities across the country. We have special skills in different areas. It's really a dynamic board to be a part of, and it has been such an excellent experience. The kind of things we do really is advise the national office on best practices that will best benefit members. I mean, what better way to find out what members want than by asking the members? I remember when I was first elected as president last year, like a couple days after, I got this email saying, oh, what partnerships would you like? Amazon was on there, Pandora was on there, different clothes stores was on there. I was tempted to say, can we have all of them? You know, so it's really a wonderful opportunity to actually have a say in this organization and actually have our ideas as students taken into consideration and life be given to our ideas. So then would you also, David, would you like to tell us about your experience on the NLC?
Sure. So, I mean, I remember the first day that I was the president of the NLC. I was on the phone with one of the truly amazing adult mentors I've had the opportunity to work with through NSCS, Amy Shopcorn. Are you here, Amy? Yeah, give it up for Amy. She's awesome. She's awesome. And Amy said to me the first time ever, she said, so Dave, like, what do you think? What do you think? I mean, just thinking about that question, what do you think? As a rising senior in college and this National Honor Society, this national organization was telling me, like, what do you think that we need to focus on? And, you know, I was really tremendously lucky to be surrounded by just phenomenal members on our council, and we chose to focus on integrity, really, like, laser focus on integrity. What does it mean? How does it impact college life just academically, socially? Like, what does integrity mean? And we spent most of our year really exploring the definition of integrity and how it impacted our members. And I know that I use the word integrity. I use what we talked about with integrity. I used the little I man. That's integrity. I used it in my classroom. It impacted me profoundly, and I know it impacted our members. And that was just one of the things we did. And I just remember feeling like important, but also like feeling really humbled by this idea that we were representing all of these members who had viable interest in what we were doing. But that's what we did in 2007. Mira, what are you guys doing now?
We're taking over the world. Really, we're doing so much, and it's so interesting to see the evolution of the NLC over the years, especially with the impacts on social media. With the opening of Twitter, of Facebook, all these things, we've had the opportunity to have the 1 million at our finger click. It's been so incredible to interact with them over Facebook. This year, our board, our tagline is bringing national local. Because yes, now we are a member of a 1 million family, but we don't necessarily want to feel like a 1 million family. We want to feel like an integral part of something. So we've reworked very hard to make sure that chapters are integrated and connected with each other and can really share ideas and share initiatives. And we've done that really by having a lot of competitions that has encouraged chapters collaborating, for instance, and different competitions on social media. Now, last year we had a contest called Tag Your Tagline. This contest really just asks members, what is your tagline? What defines you? What has NSCS inspired you to achieve? And we had so many responses, so many members posted on our Facebook page what their tagline was. And we just awarded a $150 gift card, but the winner was a non-conventional student. She was actually a mother of 3 young children. And her tagline really was, this organization has motivated me to go back to school, to obtain a degree, because I cannot encourage my children to attend college if I haven't attended myself. And we thought it was so humble. We thought it was so genuine. It really exemplified this organization, you know, elevating high achievers. And she won our contest. She was so emotional. She posted this long essay on our wall saying, oh, I'm crying. You know, this organization really has been an integral support for me. And, you know, it's so wonderful to be able to give out scholarships, but more than that, to be able to actually support members in their individual endeavors. Another thing that we have also worked on is career weeks. So of course, we want to get good grades, but after college, we want to get good jobs. So we, this year, our focus also was to bring the resources at our members' fingertips online. So the first week in every month, we had a career week specific to a specific career field. So we had Sci Week, where we featured science careers, science majors, science research opportunities. We also had Biz Week, which was our most popular. All the business majors, they were on there all the time collaborating. And also we had Arts and Tech Week, which was incredibly fun. Last August, we actually had one of our NLC members, Daniel Kalbach. His uncle is Steve Kalbach, who is the visual effects producer on the Game of Thrones. So we were able to interview him. If you can check it out, definitely, he's such a fun guy. The interview was amazing to watch. And these are the kind of fun things that we've been cooking up as the NLC. So Dave, tell me about your experience as an NSCS member.
First of all, you guys have been doing a lot.
Thank you.
Good work. No, and I think what Mira said, and I think what's really powerful is that, even as NLC members, we are first and foremost NSCS members. And if this was an ABC Family movie, I could tell you the exact moment where I was when I opened the envelope to find out I got into NSCS. But it's not ABC Family, and I was a college freshman trying to collect as many free T-shirts as possible. And so I don't know where I was, but I do remember how I felt when I sat in our induction ceremony with this real powerful onus to do something with this acknowledgement, to do something with this idea that leadership comes from service. And the most powerful part of my membership was serving the middle school in our community, in our Planning for College Success program. It changed my life. I was probably headed down here to be a professional basketball player, and instead I went to New Orleans and I became a teacher, and it changed my whole perception on everything. And so I credit NSCS for really, honestly, truly, grounding in me and in my messaging to youth, even today, that leadership, true leadership, requires meaningful and collaborative service. And so I'm really honored by my membership first and foremost in NSCS. What did it mean to you when you found out?
Oh, absolutely. I think my hook was definitely at my induction ceremony, where my member engagements, coordinator Marie was there, and also we were so fortunate to have Steve present at our induction ceremony. So I'm just a new inductee sitting down, checking it out, seeing what's in this for me. And during Steve's address, he mentioned the NLC, and he mentioned the opportunities with that. So I'm like, okay, this does sound kind of cool. I know he just spoke about his vision for this organization, and it was incredible. So after that, my appetite was whet. I'm like, okay, this kind of sounds like something I'm interested in. How do I get more information? And a chapter officer literally told me, go speak to Steve. I'm like, I can't just walk up to the founder. That doesn't make sense. And eventually, I did that, and he was so humble, he was so genuine, and he told me, oh, let me get your email address, and I can give you more information. So I just laughed at it. Oh, sure, take my email. You're not going to email me. That's not going to happen. And he actually did. And it blew my mind that the founder of an organization actually did that, and that's how I knew that there was something very peculiar about this organization that actually cares about the individual progress of its students. So my particular chapter has been phenomenal in service. Recently, we had a program called Harmony that helps autistic children, and NSCS students are the ones that have had this. Our community really has applauded this organization for what we've done in Penn State. And I know across the country, different NSCS chapters are really changing their communities. So, Steve, on behalf of the entire NLC, we would like to give you a heartfelt thank you. Thank you so much for really thinking about us, thinking about our future. You were not in college when you created this. You created this for us. And we're so, so very thankful. Thank you. And would you like to add?
Yeah, I just would. What do I want to add? How can I follow that? First of all, can we just say, Mira's amazing, right? Can we give her a round of applause? She's amazing. She's amazing. But honestly and truly, quickly, Steve, I'm proud to know you, to have been mentored by you, to call you a friend, and also to know that your dream and your following of your dream is an inspiration for me and an inspiration I use when I talk to youth across the country about the power of dreams and the power of service and the power of passion. So thanks, Steve, on behalf of all of us. We want to give you thank you. I'd also like to give you a hug, if that's cool with you. So you can come up and give Mira and I a hug. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Dave. It is now my great pleasure to introduce this evening's keynote speaker, Mr. Michael Robbins. Michael is the founder of SPAN Learning, an initiative that assists schools and communities in developing a digital learning partnership. He previously served as the Senior Advisor for Nonprofit Partnerships at the U.S. Department of Education. So please help me welcome to the podium, Mr. Michael Robbins.
Thanks so much, Mira. I knew I was going to have to speak after General Powell. I didn't realize I was going to have to speak after you and Dave. So, when I was talking to one of my friends about tonight and explained, the order of things, he said, aren't you nervous about going after General Powell? I said, I'm actually more nervous about speaking in front of my wife. So Heather's here. Thank you very much for your support. So, I would really like to thank Steve, not just for your vision, but for your execution. It's one thing to have a lasagna dinner and to write things on the back of napkins. But as I like to say, execution is the new innovation. And what you've done over the last 20 years is to make all of this possible. So thank you again very much. So I'd also like to recognize, she doesn't know I'm going to do this, but she's over there in the corner, my former colleague at the U.S. Department of Education, Dr. Martha Cantor. Would you stand up, please? I had the extraordinary pleasure of serving with Martha in the Obama administration for 5 years, where she was Undersecretary of Education. And the amount of work that she did to carry the torch for civic engagement and for service in higher education was just absolutely extraordinary. I mean, she made this stuff happen. So we owe this to you. Thanks so much. So I got to know the National Society of Collegiate Scholars during my time at the department, and I'm a huge fan. When people ask me to describe it, right, the name's fairly generic. There's a lot of acronyms, especially here in DC and in education. The way that I describe it is that most honor societies are an epitaph on an undergraduate education. And the society, in fact, is different. It acknowledges and inspires students when they need it the most. It helps them to achieve even greater things. The society is focused on things that we need to see more of: inspiration, celebration, and service. Heather and I have an 8-year-old, Alexander, and we're very lucky to have a great neighborhood school that we can walk to. And so one morning last year, I'm walking Alexander to school, and I was going to be late that night because I had an event with Secretary Duncan. This was the beginning of our push on preschool for all. And so Alexander asked, what's the event with Secretary Duncan? And I explained it to him, and he got kind of confused. I'm like, not all kids get to go to preschool. He said, no, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, think about when you were in kindergarten. Think about some of the students that weren't as ready as you were. He's like, yeah, I already knew everything in kindergarten. I said, nationwide, fully 40% of our students are not ready for kindergarten. And he says, but Dad, that means 60% of the kids are ready for kindergarten. And as much as I admire his math skills, I also admire his optimism. Too often our conversations around education are focused on the things that aren't going right. It's focused on the problems, right? You only need to look at the headlines now to see that. The conversation is always about what's not happening right. The great thing here tonight is we're here to talk about what is going right in education. We're here to help turn the public conversation around and to really move the narrative in a different way, celebrating 20 years of achievement. General Powell mentioned earlier this evening this 80% figure that was released this week. This is something to celebrate. We have reached 80% of our high school students graduating from high school, but what's going to help us go even further? What's going to help us ensure that these students make it into and through college. We know that schools and higher education institutions cannot do it by themselves. They shouldn't have to do it by themselves. This is all of our responsibility. This is a commitment that NSCS has taken on as well, a commitment to service. There are those that talk about service, and there are those that take action and initiate change. NSCS is comprised of members who go the extra mile to make a difference in our community. Through service, NSCS members are able to reach out to those with fewer opportunities and provide them with new resources. NSCS chapters are deeply committed to service and coordinate a variety of service events each year. They make more than $1 million, as we heard earlier, available to members. There are 2 scholarships that deal specifically with service. The Military Service Award is a $1,000 scholarship that's awarded to a high-achieving student veteran who exemplifies the spirit of military service and is currently pursuing a 4-year degree. The Engaging Race Award is an award given to members so they can implement their own original service initiatives. NSCS's premier and unique service program prepares students for college, the Planning to Achieve Collegiate Excellence program, PACE. So let's look at these 80% of students that are now graduating high school. We know that too many of them are not ready for college success. We know that nationwide, over 40% of college freshmen find that they need some level of remedial help. PACE is taking this on through service to improve college readiness. In an average academic year, PACE utilizes more than 5,500 NSCS student volunteers and 3,000 other volunteers to provide services to over 6,000 middle and high school students. The volunteers address the college preparedness problem through mentoring, assemblies, and March to College days that resulted in more than 6,000 middle and high school students becoming more prepared for college. As we look to the future of these service initiatives, I'd like to offer some ideas about what next. Where can we go from here? We're seeing unprecedented investment in education technology. It is driving transformation across the country. This is an inflection point in education. This can be more than just trading textbooks for tablets. It really can change the way that schools and families and community partners work together to drive student engagement and learning. This is a challenge I'm focused on, and there are opportunities for NSCS and others to make impacts. There's a need for service activities to increase digital access and literacy. Too many of our families and students don't have reliable access to the internet, and they don't have the skills to be successful once they're online. Digital learning could be a tool to boost education, service, and volunteering. I have 3 college degrees. None of them are in reading instruction. But I can sit with a group of students, and all of a sudden, I become an effective reading tutor for those students. And I know that the work I'm doing is aligned with the goals of the teacher and the school. We also see technology transforming mentoring with initiatives like iMentor, which is being adopted by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, where it allows mentoring to happen in both virtual and in-person environments. And the systems also help support and train the mentors themselves. Service can help us create 24/7 lifestyles of learning for our students. For those students that face the greatest challenges inside and outside the classroom, that's what we need to do in order to help them succeed. As more of our schools start incorporating proficiency-based credit achievement, there's even greater opportunities for partners to contribute to college preparedness. It's especially exciting when we consider things like opportunities for students to begin earning college credits while they are still in high school. I'd like to leave you with a story from an event I did in Las Vegas around community and family engagement in education. Do we have anyone here from Las Vegas? So Mayor Carolyn Goodman is a force of nature. She is, if you wanted to call a Hollywood casting agent for the mayor of Las Vegas, they would send you Mayor Goodman. Blonde, bejeweled. So we were doing this event, and she was a little bit late, and she comes in, and she's really excited. I thought she was going to give me a hug, which is okay. I'm a hugger. That's good. And she said, I'm sorry, I was at this event before I came, and it was a group of wedding planners. And I sort of looked at her. She said, no, not the Elvis Chapel wedding planners. She said, these were people that were looking at all these out-of-the-box ways to have exciting, different, unique celebrations for their weddings. She said, I know I need to calm down because we're talking about something serious. We're talking about education. And I said, absolutely not. I said, if we could take the same energy that happened in that meeting you just came from and put it toward what we're talking about here, college access and success, community and family and engagement and education, we'll be a long way toward accomplishing what we need to accomplish. We're here tonight at one of these celebrations. So thank you all for joining us. I'm inspired, we're engaged, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Robbins. Now we will have a short break for our dessert services. As we all finish our dessert, we'd like to move on to our few final speakers for the evening. At this moment, I would like to welcome to the stage Ms. Mary Z. Ashlock, the founding chair of the NSCS Board of Directors, and Mr. Jeff Summer, the current chair.
Good evening. I have literally arrived on a wing and a prayer. I was sitting on the exit wing, and whatever wing. My husband's a pilot. I don't know these terms though. And first, our plane was struck by lightning. So then we couldn't board, and we haven't, and luckily, another plane. And I was praying, so I was on a wing and a prayer. And I'm glad to be here. I have prepared remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. I was just so depressed for a while. My husband, being the pilot, said, "You're not going to make it. If that lightning struck, I'm going to tell you right now, it's all backed up. You can't make it." But we made it. I made it. So I'm glad. Anyway. What a special time. And speaking of my husband, this is my attention getter for this evening. These are the words of my husband years ago, about 20 years ago. "Mary, make sure Steve pays you back." Those are his words after learning that I had loaned NSCS $3,000 on a Best Buy card. It was a great deal, no interest. We had no money. So I was asked to share some remarks with you about those days. And so I thought I'd create the environment and then share with you some of those never in a million dreams. And then transition into a few things that'll transition into Jeff talking about where the board is now and where all, as we've heard this evening, where we are currently. So to set the stage, as you've heard many different stories, we gathered together, and as board members, and I need to acknowledge some former ones too, and then Jeff, we talked about Jeff can acknowledge some of the current ones who are here. I'd like them to stand. Ralph Johnson, please stand, past board member. We have Gary Cook, past board member. Bill Ziegler. He took over after me and made everything right. And then we have Chris Ferguson. Where's Chris? Chris, stand up. I believe that's all we have here, but that's okay. We're in good hands with everyone. So to set the stage, I thought by the way, my area is communication. It may not seem as though it is, but I teach. I was a business consultant for many years, and then I returned to teaching in higher ed 8 years ago. So as a professor, I certainly share with people that nonverbal communication, as again you may know, is where it's at as far as trying to decipher what something really is. So in setting the stage for what all of us did, we would look at one another and make these facial remarks, especially when Steve would say things, okay, we now have a chapter at George Washington University. We're going to have a couple more this year. We say, okay, all right, that was good. And then Steve would go on with different ideas, and that's the never in a million years idea. I'll get to in a minute. And we had all these facial expressions. And so all these things were going on. So as I transitioned to that, though, you've probably heard the stories, again, that we were signing things, stuffing things, and I think that brought us closer together. And I have images in my mind sitting on my back deck in Columbia, South Carolina, where I lived at the time, and we would literally look up at the clouds and brainstorm about what we were doing, and we had Krispy Kreme donuts, and everyone slept at my house as well. So you need to know that because we were talking about all of you to come and trying to set the foundation. In addition to that, we did have strategic planning, and thanks to Steve, we got some things in order. So then the Never in a Million Dreams began when Steve started saying, well, let's go and expand across the United States. That's when the facial expressions continue. You know, and so we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and then someday we're going to do community colleges, and then, high school. And what? Wait a minute. So logistically, we're trying to operationalize the whole thing, and those are our duties, right? I can look at Ralph. I can remember some good discussions we had, and so those were favorable memories. I was on the board 9 years. They had to kick me off at some point. So that gives you an insight that it was real. And again, to see all of you to be part of that is so rewarding. And then we finally went into transitioning into looking at the future, which again I'm going to give over to Jeff in a moment. I do want to share a couple things, though, at this time. I know General Colin Powell was here, and I tell a story about him whenever I'm doing training, development, and leadership, and now with my classes. And here's the story. I was in Macon, Georgia at Icon Capital, and a woman came up to me during the break, and Icon was one of my longtime customers and clients. So she came and said during the leadership training, I need to tell you a story about General Colin Powell. He was my boss. And I said, really? She said, yes, I was a staff member. And she looked like she was probably honestly in her 40s or 50s at the time. She said, I did that, now I'm here in Macon. She said, I want to share with you a story in that when he came back from the Persian Gulf War, we had these great parties. And at one reception, she just stood to the side, and he literally made a beeline to her and looked her in the eye and said, how's your son? Does he still like working on cars? And she said, in the midst of all that, he showed her that he knew his people and he cared. And so that story comes up whenever I'm talking about leadership. We compare ourselves to all the other honor societies, but it's the people. We care. Steve started it. He knows you. You know people you interact with. And so that is so powerful. And so that's one key thing I wanted to leave you with is just knowing your people. And it was just so fascinating that General Colin Powell could be here, and that's something that I just love to share. And then I want to share with you a saying that you may also use or have heard. And this is my philosophy when I'm training, teaching, whatever, and I think it exemplifies NSCS. And here it is, Chinese proverb. And it says, tell me I hear, show me I see, involve me I understand. And so think about it. Someone told you about NSCS. Someone showed you all the internet, my gosh, all the internet links. Can you believe it? All the drop-down boxes. Someone showed you. I'm amazed. With all we talked about scholarships, everything's just amazing. And so then you were involved, and that's that engaged piece that we have that represents NSCS. Tell me I hear you. Show me I see. Involve me I understand. You understand what NSCS is about, and it does take all of you to differentiate us from anybody else and make it so special. So thank you, and I am so honored to be here with all of you this evening.
Of course, I get to follow all the speakers tonight, and then Mary, who's highly engaging. You're funny, and we did get to work together. But I got in a little bit late, too. Acela was running late out of New York, so put the tux on in the bathroom downstairs, honestly, and ran up here, and you guys were already in motion, Miss General Powell. And it felt like a board meeting. I got a little bit confused. So for you earlier board members, this is kind of how we roll now. You know, we usually dress this way. Stacy's usually dressed in full, regalia. And the flowers look familiar, right, guys? Yeah. And the food, and we love wine during the board meetings. Now, Peter doesn't like that, but, he holds us back a little bit. But could we just have all present and past board members stand up, just so you guys can see all the people who have been involved in this? Thanks, guys. So for those of us currently on the board, we know that we're standing on those shoulders and people that started this work, and we're so pleased to be here. And our role as board members, which is a fantastic process of colleagues, very accomplished from not-for-profit, academia, and for-profit work. Our work is to really lean into stuff, to really push thinking. And that's a really delicate piece of work to do with a inspirational, accomplished founder. And so we take that pretty seriously. So I've got 4 minutes, so we're going to do some work. Give you a little bit of a sense of what our meetings are like and what our exchange is like. I've had the opportunity over the last 4 years to work with a small group of colleagues internationally with a few international NGOs that serve children, improve safety, health, education for children. And there's 3 things I was thinking about. I was listening to some of the speakers in terms of just stories and experiences. About a year ago, we're in Guatemala, and it took us about an hour and a half to get up into the mountains, so it was a very remote village. And part of this leadership development that we do with some of the leaders in that organization is working with the children in the field in one particular country. And the leaders come from all over globally. And the kids asked us, we always give them a few days, and the kids asked us to help them prepare for a conversation with the village elders to get 4 computers, because up to that date they weren't allowed to have computers. And we did that work with them. It was fascinating and unbelievable, of course. And they ended up getting the computers. But what was at the core of it is that they wanted to learn. Fast forward 6 months in the Philippines, and we same program, different participants. And we were working with kids that lived in a trash picking community. So their parents picked plastic out of the trash in the dumps, and that's how they sustained their families. And these children, what they wanted to do as part of the program is they wanted to figure out how to get other kids into the program who weren't getting any access to education at all. And the third is current work that we're doing in the United States. And that work is with a program that serves children on the border of Mexico and Texas, immigrant children in the Dakotas, Native American children, and in Mississippi, where there's probably some of the most historically intractable poverty in the United States. And when you interface with these kids who have so little, as I flippantly lose phone after phone, month after month, all they want to do is learn. All they want is access. They just want a shot at it. They just want to have the opportunity one day to be one of you. One of the conversations, I work in professional services, and one of the conversations we have a lot is, thank God we got into this when we did, because we're all in our 50s plus now. Because the talent that we see is so remarkable. And I have that same impression tonight. It's just remarkable to see what so many of those of you who have graduated or soon to graduate have accomplished, especially with support of NSCS. These stories to me are not discouraging. They're hopeful, and they're promising, and they're motivating. Because when you see what a person could do with an idea, we're now sitting here in what's probably, I think, Bill, you're saying, probably one of the most beautiful rooms in Washington, D.C., so thank you, NSCS, for that. But what I'd like to do tonight as the current chair is lean in a little bit and push your individual thinking in terms of how do you move this experience forward. It is a remarkable experience. We could be here for a week talking about our individual experiences with NSCS. But want to encourage all of us to think about how we take that forward and how we individually and collectively have the resources and the ideas and the boldness and the craziness to put $3,000 on a credit card from, what was it, Home Depot or Best Buy? Okay, sorry. But to not be discouraged and to lean into the challenges that we see in front of us and be a part of that solution. I have to say, there's something very odd about getting to this point of your career. It goes remarkably fast. And the only reason you care about it is because you're having so much fun. And it's incredibly encouraging to see the motivation and the inspiration and the talent that all of you have. And that's why we, as colleagues on the board, past and present, feel honored to be a part of this with you. So thank you for that. I promised Steve, I freaked him out a little bit because at break I told him I'm just going to go up there for 5 minutes to talk about you. Because he doesn't like that very much. And I appreciate that. I hate the birthday when they all sing and that kind of thing. But this is a remarkable celebration. It's a remarkable milestone. It happened through intent and grist. And it's also a foundation to do great, great things moving forward. So, Mary, first, thank you for being the founding board chair. A number of previous board chairs in the room and board members. And our intention and our commitment to Steve, Verilyn, and the organization is to continue to lean in and find opportunities to push this forward. So thank you for the opportunity and congratulations on your success.
And on behalf of everyone in this room and the entire NSCS society, we would like to thank Mary, Jeff, and the past and present board directors for what you've contributed to this organization. At this moment, we would like to invite Mr. Dan Horgan to the stage. He is the former NLC Vice President of Community Service, and also he's the founder of the NSCS chapter at Robert Morris University. Please help me welcome Dan.
Thank you so much. I have to say, I'm sitting here throughout the night and just incredibly humbled to be here. And when I think back over the many, many years to when I founded the chapter at Robert Morris, when I had the privilege to be a part of the NLC, and I think, if my memory serves me correctly, that Mary actually led a communications training, which I still have in my, no joke, leadership box that I carry around with me. Just moved it from DC to New York, where I pick it up and work with kids all across the country in service learning and leadership development. So sometimes it's amazing how things come full circle and how our paths come in and out and cross each other at various milestones in our lives. So I'm also incredibly humbled because 3 weeks ago I moved from DC to New York City, and when I was on the NLC, I had the opportunity to really mobilize the chapters across this country and the members, the chapter advisors, and many, many other student volunteers right after September 11th to all be matched one-on-one to the families in New York City who were affected in some way by the disaster. And so it's just humbling as I think about where I'm living now and where I am and sitting here and being in the honor of Steve and all of the amazing people and leaders who have made NSCS what it is. So with that, I was asked to read for you a recent blog post that I had posted entitled "Let's Be Crazy," which I think is incredibly appropriate given tonight's theme. Hunter Hayes sings the words, "I don't want good, and I don't want good enough. I don't want easy, I want crazy." These words made me pause and consider when I had last taken a big, bold step away from the status quo. When I let my passion uncontrollably surface through my words and actions without filtering or fearing the consequences of my authenticity being on display. It makes me sad how often we starve the world of our stories and give power to an inner voice that disregards our own potential. We let the judgment of others reproduce in our minds, suffocating our dreams and blinding us to the vision that is our purpose. When we're crazy, though, we disregard it all. We bring our whole being to the table through our imagination, innovation, and creativity. We differentiate ourselves from one another while simultaneously celebrating our interdependence. We use criticism as fuel and rejection as motivation, and most importantly, we don't give up in the pursuit of something greater than what has been deemed possible. Instead, we pursue with great fervor the impossible as an agent of change and a miracle worker. So let's stop being safe. Let's start being bold. Let's step out of our routines and predictable thoughts, and let's be spontaneous together. Take a step off the beaten path and discover a new horizon. Let's put down the status quo, pass by the tried and true, and challenge ourselves to innovate, to create something new. Bypass the fear of judgment and rejection, and embrace the spirit of entrepreneurs who seek to disrupt and deliver solutions that simplify and accelerate. Together, let's be crazy and different and break the rules that we blindly embrace and never truly dissect to understand the why behind the words. Let's be magical together in a quest to hear our naysayers erupt in a chorus of oohs and ahs at our success. Let's plow through the no's and can'ts and shouldn'ts. Let's shake out the fear and change the language in our minds. And let's surround ourselves with teachers and mentors and advocates that feed us inspiration and nourish our souls so that we can thrive by embracing the rawest form of ourselves. Let's peel off the labels, tune out the destructive criticism, and tune into our passion, which breeds the stories that only we have the ability to create and share with one another. So please join me in raising your glasses as I toast Steve and NSCS in the spirit of being crazy.
A round of applause for Dan, please. Thank you. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have our final speaker for this evening. Please welcome to the stage our very own NSCS founder and CEO, Steve Laughlin.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I could say this is like one of the best nights ever for me because this room is very safe. This is a safe place for me. Would you agree? This is a safe place? But this is also a nightmare for me because I am telling you the truth. Like, I feel like when I look around here, it's like some sort of homecoming. There's so many people here who've been such a big part of NSCS and our history. And I mentioned to Verilyn that I thought a good idea for my presentation tonight was to go around to every table from the podium and just say exactly what I appreciate about what you bring and what you've brought and what we're doing with NSCS. And then she said, you have 5 minutes. So here we are with my 5 minutes, knowing we're going to be kicked out of this room at 9 o'clock. And everybody's probably like, I've heard enough about this already. We are celebrating 20 years, and let's move on to 20 years in one day. Let's get out of here. So I think for me, the best thing about these opportunities is to remind me that we haven't done enough. And I think about 20 years ago when we had our very first induction, it's a really true statement that, and Aaron mentioned this, it was a very chaotic experience because we got there for the first induction, the room wasn't ready, it was double booked, it was just one big problem. And I felt this sense of discouragement, or at least a tad, as we walked into the room, just because it was already not going right. And it just seemed like, how could this happen? We planned so hard for this. And then everyone started milling into the room, and you started seeing the excitement that people had, the parents who came, the grandparents who were there. And then all of that room mess just kind of went away because it was like, all right, this is what we're doing this for. It's not about the logistics. It's about the fact that we're honoring people for doing something that most of their classmates couldn't do. And I get asked all the time, you wouldn't believe how much I get asked, why did you start NSCS? Why did you start NSCS? I hear it all the time. And I think about it often because I realize doing well in college is really hard. And there's a big conversation now that goes on continuously, particularly in the entrepreneur community. Like, do you really need college? Is college really that significant or that important? And then I look at the people that we get to work with, and I see the things that they do on their campuses and the way that they make a difference and the way that I think college becomes a foundation. And what we have the privilege of doing through NSCS is saying, welcome to an organization that wants to recognize you for doing something that 80% of your classmates couldn't accomplish. And now that we've recognized you for that, it's time to go out there and do something with it to make a difference. And I love what Dave had to say, because it's true. Like, you know, with leadership, there's this responsibility for service. And I think we have a big opportunity, and sometimes I forget about it, because it's like, and I know there's a story that Paul Himmelfarb over there reminds me of when he called me to congratulate us on the 1 millionth member. And I was like, Paul, that was like 20 minutes ago. We're like 1 million and something else now. Like, we have the million, and we're moving and marching forward. We have places to go, things to do. It's definitely a milestone, and tonight's a milestone. And when I think about 20 years, there's been a lot of learning. There's been a lot of mistakes. There's definitely been a lot of times that it was kind of scary. But I think what happened more than anything is we've all come together. And if you just think about yourself as an individual and you think for a minute or two about what it is that you've done to support the organization, it's because of that that we actually exist today. And the tables are interestingly grouped. You know, we've got like NLC people and advisors and board partners, past staff. And I think what happens sometimes in the process is people don't know. You get siloed a little bit. You don't know what the other group is doing or how the other group is making a difference. And we've tried really hard to always try to bring people together, because it takes all of us doing whatever it is we do to make NSCS amazing. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, because I think we have these conversations about member engagement a lot in the office, because it's the most important role. It's why we exist. Member engagement team members are out there doing probably what I wish I could be doing every day. They're on the campuses. They're actually working with the student leaders. They're planning and plotting and figuring out how can that chapter be successful. I love that. I love that, and I think that that's the most incredible part of what we do as an organization. And then I think about the fact that as we do barrel our way toward 400 chapters, there was a time back, not that long ago after we started, that I was doing NSCS on nights and weekends. And it was me trying to start chapters and do other things. And when it got to that point, with Richard Rossi's encouragement, quit Georgetown and do this full time. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to make a difference. I remember walking away into this new world, and there was a small group of people that joined me in this quest. And I want to recognize them for a second. So Barb and Karen, who are here, and also Jim Duncan. Where are you guys? So I won't go to every table, but I will mention them because they took a chance along with me. It's like there is nothing really that exists here right now except for 9 chapters of NSCS. And do you want to come do this with me? And I think they were a little bit reluctant, if they were to be honest. If you get a little bit of wine in them, then they'll really tell you, I think that it's not just a crazy idea, Steve. I think you're just crazy. That's how it would go. But I think we got together, we mobilized, we worked really hard, and we grew that number to 43 chapters. And then you started realizing that the potential is definitely there. And then we sort of staffed up a little bit more, and then the next level came in with Diane and Eileen and others to say, yes, we can really do this in the chapter development stages of this. And then we had a bad year. And the bad year was really scary, and Bill Ziegler over here will say, yes, it was. He was the board chair, and he did not want a bad year on his watch. I do not want that to happen. And I think what I learned that year was you can actually do amazing things if you come together and you look at the problem, and then you decide to solve it. And I have to thank Amy for joining me in this, because we really solved a problem. And what Bill told me would take 5 years to fix, Amy and I were high-fiving when we not only fixed it within a year, but we exceeded far more than we anticipated. those are the stories that I love about NSCS because it talks about coming together and making things happen. And then coming together tonight is really special because it's nice to know that Karen gets on a plane from Germany to come join us. She probably wins the farthest award. Is there anybody here that came further than Germany to be here tonight? Okay, let's hear it for Karen for doing that. And Barb came up from Atlanta, and I appreciate everybody that's come here from faraway places to support the work that we do. But it is true, like, I think the next thing for me is to think about what's next. And we have had so many great things happen this year. We had our 1,000th member. We are definitely moving forward with being more successful than ever with membership. We're launching a new conference this summer called ScholarCon, which is going to be really excellent. And then community colleges are truly starting to take off and to turn into something. And Mary mentioned this because back in the day, and I would like to clarify just so it's perfectly clear, Mary, I did pay Mary back, if you were wondering, okay? I noticed she didn't tell you that I paid her back, but I did. So I want everyone to know that that is the truth. Isn't it? Okay, that's true. And also that we did not kick Mary off the board because we would never kick Mary off the board. We have a 9-year term limit, so Mary rolled off after her 9 years. But we did talk about all the possibilities for NSCS, and now we're starting to realize those possibilities. So in the probably 1 more minute that I have, what I would like to have you imagine is when we're gathering in 5 more years to celebrate the 25th anniversary of NSCS, I'd like for us to all kind of put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we're going to see having evolved after 5 years. Because a lot can happen in 5 years. A whole lot can happen in 5 years. And when we come back together, and I already checked, it's a Tuesday night. So I'm not sure about that. But I also went ahead and put in a request for no rain. So let's keep your fingers crossed on that. But besides that, I think you're going to find that we're going to be very present in the community college space. And we're going to be doing exactly what I and others have imagined would happen with community colleges. We're going to help students who transfer from community college to the 4-year school actually feel more that they have a place to belong. And it's going to happen. It's happening already. Our president that is leaving GW, Marzouk, you know, I love his story. And I love that Jill's here from Northern Virginia Community College, who served as an awesome advisor there. But I spoke at their induction, and I remember announcing the scholarship that GW had just offered up for any community college member of NSCS who applies and gets accepted to GW, automatically gets a $10,000 a year award, just by virtue of being a member of NSCS, because it says a lot about who they are. So I announced this at Northern Virginia Community College. Marzouk came running up to me to say, I'm so excited, I'm about to apply to go to GW, and this scholarship makes a big difference to me. And so sure enough, Marzouk applied, he gets accepted. Marzouk is just wrapping up his presidency of the chapter of NSCS at GW. That's exactly how I imagine it happening. Marzouk left Northern Virginia Community College, where he didn't have, you know, the first 6 weeks of your freshman year at a 4-year school is when you meet most of your friends for your whole college career. It's just the way it goes. It's just the way it happens. But NSCS, for students coming from the community college to the 4-year chapter, they have a place to belong, and we're going to be committed to helping make that transition better. So when we come back in 5 years, you're going to hear about the amazing stories. We may have to have 2 of these, like one to focus on community colleges and one to focus on the 4-year. But then there's the high school program that Mary mentioned, and they're freaking out in fear and all that. So we've also been working on that, and I'm excited that Marie's going to step into that role and help us kind of move that program forward. It's going to be awesome. So I think under Marie's leadership and some of our commitment to taking people in high school, high achievers in high school, and holding their hand until they get to the point of college so that they can be just as ready to be a high achiever when they get to college as they were in high school, because it's not the same. You may be a high achiever in high school, but it doesn't automatically guarantee you're going to be one when you get to college. And we want to be committed to help make that high achieving ambition carry right over. So there's a lot that we're doing. There's a lot of amazingness, and there's a lot of people that are fueling it all to make it happen. So I just want to be here tonight to say thank you and let you know how much I appreciate each and every one of you, even if Verilyn wouldn't let me go around every table from the podium. And thank you. Just thank you so much for making NSCS something in your life, and knowing that, just like Dan talked about, Dan has this book that he's written. Isn't that right, Dan? We're going to help it become a bestseller because we'll promote it to all of our million NSCS members, and it'll be awesome. But he was nice enough, I think, to ask me if I would kind of read the draft of the book. And then I read this thing about crazy, and it really stuck with me because I always talk about the crazy idea. And it's just like I mentioned on Facebook earlier today. I said, now that we've made it to the 20th year, it's like trust your crazy idea, but then realize that maybe the idea wasn't so crazy after all. So thank you so much for everything that you've done, and thank you for being here tonight. I know the weather didn't cooperate, even though I asked for better weather, but I really do appreciate you making this a priority for tonight, and I look forward to seeing the things that we collectively can actually create together over the next 5 years. Thank you very much.